Hello, my name is Lucette Moran. I am an immigration attorney with the ECBA Volunteer Lawyers Project, and I'm here on behalf of VLP and the Say Yes Buffalo organization to speak with Samantha White. So first, could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Sam White. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing since 2018. I currently work over at the Western New York Law Center. I also have a small criminal practice and represent nonprofits, etc.
So first, I want to talk to you about what you're currently working on. So what can you tell us what projects you are most excited about at the Western New York Law?
So I'm actually building the school discipline project from the ground up. We represent students that are facing long-term suspensions. We can help them by advocating for them during the hearings. We can help them by appealing a decision and potentially even expunging a suspension off of their record. We're looking to get as many kids back in school as possible and to get kids in chairs for educational instruction.
So before you became an attorney, did you also work in other legal related jobs or did you do other things?
I was really mostly a social activist before I became an attorney. Um, I followed the traditional path. I graduated from Brentwood High School. That's in Suffolk County on Long Island. I went to University of Rochester, then UB Law, and I did that pretty much all back to back. But I graduated right around the time of the Great Recession of 2008. I'm thinking that some of the students may have just been born around then. But yeah, that's when I graduated from law school. And there was a lot of social and economic unrest because of the bank failures and the foreclosure crisis. And I was just involved in, advocating, and I was heavily involved in a protest movement called the Occupy movement here in Buffalo, as well as nationwide. It was an amazing experience, but because of that, I didn't actually go straight into the practice of law. After a few years of being a social activist, I did settle down and I did get a job actually doing collections for a while. And then it was when my mom was passing from cancer that, you know, I made some promises that that I fulfilled. She said, you got to become a lawyer. I'd passed my bar and everything, but it had been so long that, I thought I'd have to take it all over again. And well, God's plan was different. And within 8 months of making that promise to my mom, I was being sworn in as an attorney. And, I'm over on the east side of Buffalo. And I've been there for, wow, since 2005. So heading towards 20 years over on the east side in the same house. And we've had tough times as individuals, as a community, we've had tough times. And so when I got into this position as an attorney, I really took it to heart that I should do more than just, make a check and, move out of the neighborhood. Instead, I've spent a lot of time advocating for the neighborhood and trying to build up the neighborhood and making sure that, the concerns of my neighbors have a voice.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. In fact, I'm
I,
looking at my mom right now. I have her picture right next to my screen.
oh, that's lovely. So, but a lot of what you were talking about actually goes into what I wanted to ask you about next. It sounds like you went to, well, like many attorneys, you went to school for a very long time. Did you know at the beginning of that journey that you were interested in going to law school, or did you come to that through other ways?
No, I knew since third grade I wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, it wasn't necessarily the easiest path, even though I had my eyes set on the goal. Um, we weren't a rich family. I'm not a multi-generational attorney. Um, my father, he worked in a factory. My mom was a homemaker for the majority of my upbringing, but at one point after my parents divorced, she, drove school bus. So we were not wealthy people. There was no silver spoon, and there was a lot of um, hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears. There were times when, faced with adversity and financial hardship, um, I I struggled. I wasn't able to do it straight through. It didn't take me. So technically, once you graduate high school, it's supposed to be 4 years for undergraduate and 3 years for law school. It took me 5 years for undergraduate and 5 years for law school because finances, I had to take time off. I had to work. I mean, I was working more than I was supposed to, working on campus, working overnights, at Denny's, Bob Evans, pizzerias, whatever little jobs I could find. And I think the one thing that I would say to the students is that life isn't about what's set up for you. It's about how you deal with challenge. There's gonna be adversities, so many adversities, and you're gonna feel weighed down at times, and you might feel like you can't do it. But how you react and whether you choose to move forward or give up will determine the trajectory of your life. And so I encourage you, you know, faced with adversity, find a way to get through it. And I'll tell you, me personally, um, that comes from my faith community. Um, I'm Jewish, but the support of my faith community is what keeps me going. And knowing that when faced with adversity, I can find solace in prayer and in that community. Um, it's just immensely powerful. And, I would encourage you to be a part of your community, use the connections that you make, during the time that you're at services or participating in community activities to advance yourself, because so many connections happen through the church, happen through the synagogue, happen through the mosque. Um, it's important.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because especially for our listeners who may also be the first or one of the first people in their family to consider going to law school or maybe a similar professional pursuit, did you find in those connections that you relied on mentors? And if so, how did you go about finding those mentors?
So I would say that no, I didn't rely on mentors. And that was part of my mistake. That's why it took me into my mid 30s to make it to being a practicing attorney, because I thought I could do it myself. I thought that I was smart enough, I worked hard enough, and I could just do it on my own. But life's not like that. So much of life is based on relationship. So much of life, especially in the professional world, is based on relationship. It's not just grades on a paper. It's not just, you know, it's not just the degree that's on the wall. It's so much dependent on relationships. And because I didn't realize and recognize and develop those soon enough, it helped to stall my progress.
So now that you're well into your career, have you
Mhm.
found opportunities either to find some mentors now or maybe become a mentor to other people?
So once I began practicing, I did develop that mentor community. And I'm telling you, through the Minority Bar Association of Western New York, I connected with so many legal professionals that immediately took an interest and helped me get to where I needed to go. and it was amazing. The networking and the assistance that I received. Um, that organization has helped me so much that I dedicated, you know, it was a way of giving back. I dedicated myself to the organization, and I served on the board, and now I'm currently president of the Minority Bar Association. I hope that it's an entity that exists for many, many years to come, so that all of these young lawyers that are looking for assistance in the future have this organization to reach out to.
That's so great. And remind us, is there a way to get involved with these various bar associations while you're in law school?
In law school, yeah. Yeah, we regularly partner with the UB Black Law Student Association, the UB Asian American Law Association, the Latin American Law Student Association. We have student memberships for law students. It does require being in law school to affiliate, but I know Say Yes has programming that puts students, I believe at the high school level or college level, into law firms during summers. I would just say, if you're interested in taking that first step into the legal field, a great place to start as a high schooler is through Say Yes.
That's great. So I want to go back to some of the community commitments that I saw on your resume. And you mentioned before that you've been in the same neighborhood for, I think, 20 years, you said.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. And as someone who's still early on in their career, I haven't quite found that level of stability yet. So I just wanted to see if you could expand a little bit about how you've been able, not been able, but how does one go about finding that balance to be able to stay connected to their community, especially in a field where it's known for, being very busy all the time.
Yeah, that's it's accepting that you're going to be busy, but valuing the importance of your neighbors, your neighborhood, and your community. I could say that I'm too busy and not do it. But if I don't do it, I don't think that there's going to be anybody else to fill that gap. So like last weekend, it means that there's a price that my family pays. There's a price that I pay. We sometimes lose time together, but I feel like the work that I'm doing is of value to so many people. It's worth that sacrifice. And I have a whole lifetime ahead of me to to catch up. But like, it means that I don't have weekends to myself. Last weekend, I was with None Like You, distributing Easter baskets at 8 different locations around the city of Buffalo. 4 on the east side, South Buffalo, and then 3 on the west side, or actually 2 on the west side, 1 in Riverside. This weekend, we'll be doing another Easter giveaway over at the CAO Raffi Green Center. It's not so easy, organizing and getting all the resources together and bagging things up. But, knowing that you're providing somebody who doesn't have access to the resources they need to, be able to enjoy their holiday, to be able to meaningfully enjoy their holiday, so that they don't have to worry about, gosh, I wish I had an Easter basket. I mean, it's not, it's important. It's important. The other things that we've done, my synagogue, we bagged up about 300 feminine hygiene bags. that we're donating to None Like You, and we'll be distributing those the last weekend of April at 8 different locations, so that, you know, we can give children something to be able to give to their mothers. If you know, it's important. It's important to recognize the contributions that moms make to their family, and sometimes if you're poor, not being able to do something for your mom it hurts. And so we don't want the kids to experience that. So it's really important that, you know, we put the effort in and make sure that they have a little something to give to their mom that she'll love, you know?
Mm. No, and of course, and I just also wanted to make sure we talked about just a couple of these in particular. I noticed you're also part of the Eastside Garden Walk, and
So, I've been part of the Eastside Garden Walk since like 2019. I chair the event. We've even spun off a free children's festival. We did it last year on my street, Box Avenue. But this year we've actually partnered with Olmsted Parks, and it's going to be an MLK Park. And so it's going to be free admission, free food. We're going to get together resources like clothing. We're going to reach out to different food resources to allow people, if they need groceries, to be able to get groceries. We're going to have educational activities surrounding healthy eating and gardening, and it's just going to be a wonderful event. Bounce houses, cotton candy, you can't beat it. Also, a friend of mine who has a farm is going to be donating pumpkins, so there'll be pumpkin carving, all of this for free in Martin Luther King Park. I know, like, going out to a well-known pumpkin farm event costs a lot of money. This is something that you can do whether you have, you know, 1 child or 6, and just enjoy it. Just enjoy the time as a family in a safe venue. We're going to be working with Buffalo Police Department to secure the venue, the neighborhood engagement team, as well as the peacemakers. So we have a lot of community partners that we're working with. And the garden walk itself is a wonderful event that happens every July. We had 75 gardens last year. We started with about 25. We grew a little bit, then the pandemic hit. Right now, we've been around 75. We're hoping to get up to 100 this year and grow by 25%. But it's a way to encourage people to beautify their neighborhoods, to beautify their home. But more importantly, I don't care if you have a planter box or a full-fledged garden. It's about bringing people to the community and saying, this is my flower box and I love it because, and it makes me feel like, fill in that blank. You know, it feels good to just bring the community together. People from outside the community, from inside the community, to see all of the positive things that are happening on the East Side, you know. And it's inspired me, it's inspired my neighbors, and it's growing connections. We advocated for a dignified site over at the Freedom Wall. When we first saw the Freedom Wall for our first year in 2018, the grass was, you know, 2 foot tall. And we began advocating, you know, this is a site where you have predominant African-American local heroes and national heroes depicted. How are you going to have 2 foot tall grass in front of it? That's not respectful, right? So 4 years, 5 years later, we actually just unveiled and lit it up. The first time we added nighttime lighting to it. There's a whole new streetscape so that the grass will never grow tall again. It even includes the Pan-African flag colors as a border. It's absolutely amazing. You know, it took 4 years of advocacy, but we did that through this network of community-minded gardeners, you know?
And that just sounds really great. I've never been a part of a gardening event like the garden walks that I've fortunately been able to look at in Buffalo. They're all beautiful, but it just sounds like a really great community to be a part of. So I also just wanted to bring us back a little bit. I talked to you about what you're currently working on in your
Mhm.
current job. Um, I noticed though that you also that you've had a variety of different types of legal experiences, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there are probably people listening who of the students listening, I mean, who maybe are, well, maybe I kind of am interested in law, but there are hundreds of types of law. How do I choose one? So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and maybe what drew you to the types of law that you worked in.
So I want to say that when I graduated, because I had this big gap between my graduation and my practice, I didn't necessarily have the type of resume that I could go land a big firm job. So I hustled. I did work for friends, family, neighbors. I did stuff for companies like Larimer Law, where I did document review for class action lawsuits. It wasn't necessarily the most satisfying work, but it was a start because everybody has to have a start. And your first job may not be the job you want, but you need a job. Can I get an amen? Right? You need a job. You got to start somewhere. Okay. Um, and even if it's not the dream job, you take what you can, you learn from that, and you move forward. So then my next job, which I acquired through the support of my network through a Minority Bar Association, it was actually during a Minority Bar Association event at UB Law. I heard about a public defender career fair. It was the first time they were doing this over at UB Law, and I was a UB Law graduate. So during that event, I was told about this and I was like, oh, I don't really know about being a public defender. It's kind of scary to have somebody's, future in your hands, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. I kind of thought that I wanted to do civil law because, at least nobody goes to jail, that's scary. Um, I went to the career fair, um, and I got a job for Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo. They put me through intense training. It was, I want to say, 5 months of training, and then another 3 to 6 months of shadowing as I was taking on my first batches of cases. And it was intense. I mean, the first time I went through intake, inside of 4 weeks, I got more than 300 cases. And it was a lot of responsibility. And, you know, this right here, answering the calls, because every single person who had a case, it was the most important thing in their life that was going on. And for the majority of them, it was a new experience that they'd never dealt with before. And they needed that connection to their attorney, and they needed to know that, you know, this is how the process works. And they needed to know that, you are paying attention to the cases, and there were nights where I was in the office till like 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's the type of thing where you have to have that in you to really want to take care of these people, these clients, because they are just that. They're real people. I mean, I've represented my neighbors, you know, and you want to be able to take care of them. And for the most part, I got a lot of good results. Am I going to say that everybody didn't go to jail? No, I can't say that. I can't say that. Um, some people do go to jail. Um, for the most part, the ones that do have prepared for it, And they did so through a plea where we were actually able to reduce the amount of time that they were going to spend in jail significantly. So that's the one bright side to it. You know, if I'm in a position to help reduce the amount of time that, you know, somebody was going to spend in jail, then, you know, yeah. So you had asked, because I kind of got stuck on a tangent. You had asked, how do you know, um, how do you know which area is right for you? I think it's
Yes.
trial and error. I think it's trial and error. And I love criminal law, even though I no longer practice criminal law as a public defender, I still practice it privately. And I love it. I'm good at it. Right now I'm doing student representation. And really the reason that I got into this is because of the school to prison pipeline, right? What I saw was the, and this is from being involved in community advocacy and bail reform and all of that stuff. You see that more than 65% of the people who are currently in jail don't have a GED. Well, the way to not graduate high school, one of the quickest ways not to graduate high school is to have multiple suspensions. It astronomically increases the likelihood that you'll end up dropping out and become involved in the criminal justice system. So I said that I wanted to be part of the advocacy, especially when the New York Civil Liberties Union was training up attorneys. Legal Aid had sent a whole bunch of us out to assist the parents. And that was when I first took on the training. And then when this position opened at the Western New York Law Center, I said, I'm in, you know, because I love helping people when they really need it, you know. And the one thing that I would say to students that are facing a suspension or that are potentially facing a suspension, right? So say maybe something happened and you've been pulled out of your classroom. I would say, ask to have your parent with you during questioning by the principal. I would say, you do not have to answer any questions that the principal or administrators ask you. And I would say, you should not sign any papers. And then give me a call. Don't talk to anybody except your parents in the privacy of your own home. Don't talk to your friends, don't talk to the other teachers, and then give us a call at the Western New York Law Center and we'll try and help.
That's a really great resource. I'm glad we were able to talk more about that. Some of the another thing we wanted to ask you about today is more about for the student listeners again, for if they are not sure if they're interested in the law, maybe they've never thought about it before, they're just listening today because maybe they were, you know, kind of on the fence. If you could think of one reason why someone should consider pursuing law, whether as an attorney or maybe as one of the other legal professionals that you work with, what would that reason be?
Well, I'll tell you what it wouldn't be. It's not money. You are not going to come out of law school and make six figures unless you're graduating from a Harvard. You know, it's not an automatic ticket to be wealthy. Mostly attorneys, even on the corporate side, they're serving wealthy people, not necessarily being the wealthy people. So if money is the motivation to go into law, it's probably not the right one. I would say if you want to help other people, if you like to stand up for the little guy, this might be the field for you. But just know you're not going to be rich. Like I said, I've been living in a house on the East Side for 20 years. just about. Um, that's the reason that I can afford to do this type of public interest work, because I don't have the McMansion, I don't have a new car, and I'm okay with that because I see the value in what I'm doing. And I consider it a blessing to be in the position to help.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. Before we wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask if there's anything else that you think that young students should know about either being an attorney or going to law school.
So I would say,
If I could be more specific, I meant to also add something that maybe you didn't know that you wished you had known before you went to law school or became an attorney.
I thought that I was going to go to law school and then become rich. So I already answered that question, but
That's fair.
I did just want to throw back to how much I respect the law students. In my role as president for the Minority Bar Association, we partner with multiple POC, SOC organizations of students. And I really admire this younger generation in how they assert themselves to authority, but in a way that is just professional. When there is that wrong, whether it is intended or unintended, the way that they advocate for themselves, it was something that we didn't we did it, but we didn't do it as well as they're doing it now. So I really just respect this younger generation of law students, and I can only imagine what this generation of viewers will do as they step into their power. And I encourage you guys all to do so.
Well, thank you. I also realized that we may have missed the number. You said the Western New York Law Center number, phone number. Perhaps maybe
Yep.
you could share that.
Yep, my direct line is 716-828-8441, 716-828-8441. If you're facing a long-term suspension, if you need to appeal a suspension, give us a call. We can help. We can help.
Thank you. And the last thing that I saw in your community engagements that I meant to ask you about earlier was the Criminal Justice Reform Task Force.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Could you tell us more about what that task force does and what you've been doing with them?
So I was a founding chair for the Minority Bar Association of Western New York's Criminal Justice Reform Task Force. I was co-chaired by Miles Gresham, as well as Mr. John Elmore. You might see him on some of the billboards around town. The three of us put together a group that came up with some amazing recommendations for how we could change the laws surrounding criminal justice. And we were able to advocate to pass Carriel's law here in Buffalo. I actually co-authored with Miles Gresham the adaptation of the right to know law for the city of Buffalo. There's actually 3 versions of the right to know law currently in New York State, and Buffalo has the strongest version of it. We are trying to work on a statewide level to pass the right to know law. We actually amended the charter for the city of Buffalo in passing this law, creating a affirmative right, an affirmative obligation for the police to advise people prior to searching their car or home or person that they did not have to consent. And so, having these, it would basically be similar to Miranda rights, where you're told you don't have to answer questions prior to answering them, right? Especially if the search is based on consent, where they have no other basis. There's no crime going on. There's no evidence of a crime. It's you saying, yes, you can search my car. Well, if you tell me I don't have to consent to that before, asking me for that permission, it may change the answer, and it may prevent people from being engaged in the criminal justice system entirely. And that was just one of the items inside of the right to know law. It also responded to the Buffalo police removing their names off of their outermost garments. And it actually now requires and codifies the duty of officers to display their names. Because one thing in terms of community policing is, how are you going to be my community police officer if I don't know your name? How are we going to build a relationship if I don't know who you are? And if you don't have a name displayed and you have that anonymity, does that make it easier for you to do the wrong thing? And so these were things that were codified into our city's charter. We also put forth a lot of other recommendations, including requiring police officers to live inside of the city of Buffalo, as well as the recommendation that officers should get a pay boost if they live in the district that they police. So after a certain period of time, we had recommended at least 18 months that they receive some sort of pay increase, because that's how you make community policing. And that's how you really have community police officers, when they live next door, when they live around the corner. And that creates, connections, and it enables both the public as well as the officers to see the humanity of the other side.
Well, thank you so much. It has been really great talking to you today. I think we've learned a lot, not just about the legal profession, but also about Buffalo and the Buffalo area. So on behalf of Volunteer Lawyers Project and Say Yes Buffalo, thank you, Samantha White, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And remember, kids, it doesn't matter what adversity comes, it's how you react to it. It's the response. If you give up, it's over. You got to keep going. Find your support in your community, in your family. There are people out there who care. So find the support, and good luck.